Hi, I'm Kesenya and welcome to Guiding Star Astrology. I'm your Astro Weather Girl here with this week's Astro Weather Report. And what a week it's going to be for the first week of the new year and the first week of the new decade. Hooray! So if you're still partying when this video is launched on YouTube, have fun, enjoy. But for those of us like the people here in Australia with me, we partied last night. So we're recovering now. But I hope you had a great one, and I want to wish everybody, all my viewers and subscribers, the best, most wonderful year ahead. Thanks for joining me for this weather report. I do want to remind everybody as well that I offer readings. If you want to know how what I talk about applies to you in a very personal way and how it's impacting your chart personally, then I do offer readings. You can find these readings at www.guidingstar.astrology.com. Go to the services page and pick the reading that best suits your needs. You can also ask me a question if you would like to, requesting, what type of reading you might like to have. Feel free to do that. Contact me through my contacts page. There are also on my website webinars where you can learn more astrology. I love to teach astrology, so you can check that out. And there are also products to help you teach astrology yourself or to help you learn astrology and understand it better. So do check those things out. Now let's get stuck into the weather and what is in store for us for the new year. Well, this is a very exciting week in the astrological skies. We've been building to this moment for a couple of years now. In fact, ever since Saturn moved into Capricorn, we've been building towards this moment where we are embarking upon the conjunction of Pluto and Saturn. It's what all the astrologers have been talking about for ages. And indeed, Heather from Beyond Astrology and I had a great discussion about this particular configuration earlier in 2019. If you want to check that out, I'll put the link in here for you to go to that video and learn all about the big picture process of what is occurring for the collective consciousness in 2020 when we have this conjunction bang on. So check that out. But this astrological reading that I'm doing for you today is all about you and how this connection of Pluto and Saturn is going to affect you at a very personal, intimate level. So we're all going to be talking this today about you and how this affects you. But we do need to cover some background information about this connection so that we can understand it clearly when we get to the all signs portion of this reading. Now, Pluto and Saturn will be conjuncting to the exact degree and minute on the 12th, depending where you are in the world, but on the 12th of January. This is when the conjunction will become exact. But we've been feeling into this energy, as I said earlier, from the time that Saturn moved into Capricorn. We've been kind of building to this moment. In fact, we're getting closer and closer, and you can feel it stronger and stronger in the ether, particularly those people who are tuned in to the feeling and the energies of the planets and how they affect us. But the conjunction to the degree is occurring this week. So we're going to feel the connection of the two, Pluto and Saturn, from the 6th of January. And this is when this conjunction will be occurring to the degree, and it's happening at 22 degrees of Capricorn that this is occurring. So on the 12th or the 13th, depending where you are in the world, it's going to be at 22 degrees and 46 minutes that these two, boom, connect exact in the sky. But from the 6th, we're going to be feeling this energy connected at the same degree. So I want to ask you, what have you got in your chart at 22 degrees? Do you have any planets of your own, personal planets, sitting at 22 degrees of any sign? But particularly, we are looking, and I'll explain my odd looking board here in a minute, but particularly we're looking at the sign of Capricorn. If you have any planet of your own, if you know your chart, at 22 degrees of Capricorn, 22 degrees of Cancer, 22 degrees of Libra, or 22 degrees of Aries. If you have any planets there, this is going to be felt very strongly for you. I have my moon at 23 degrees of Libra, so very, very close to this conjunction degree. And so I've been really feeling this energy bubbling in me for a couple of weeks now, actually. It's an energy of tension, an energy of wanting to renew something. Pluto is to renew things, restore, a desire to restore things and restructure things in my life, particularly concerning family, home, which are things represented by the moon. So you will need to know your chart if you want to know how this conjunction is playing out, particularly for you at a personal level. Now, obviously, I can't tell you everyone's charts and how this will be being felt, and what things the moon rules in your chart, or the sun rules, or Mercury rules in your chart. This is something that you will need to get a reading to understand further. Feel free to do that if you would like to through my website. But if you do know your chart and you do know the planets that are there and what they represent, 22 degrees is going to be a kicker for us all with planets there, or an ascendant degree, or the MC, or a particular manifestation point that sits at 22 degrees. Now, as I mentioned, Heather from Beyond Astrology and I have done a collaborative video all about this conjunction, and we look in detail at the history, particularly the history of last time this conjunction of Pluto and Saturn, here they are sitting here at 22 degrees, the last time that occurred in Capricorn, which was in 1517, and the events that unfolded in 1517 that have set the world in motion on a different trajectory. It was a very, very impactful year. And particularly we note that was the year Martin Luther nailed his thesis to the door of the church, which set in motion new publications. It was one of the first publications to have been received by the masses. Not the Bible wasn't the first thing, it was this thesis that was received by the masses. And it was also a time when, because Martin Luther did this, it set in motion changes to the Catholic dominated society in Northern Europe, or throughout Europe actually. And because of that, we saw the rise of more Protestant approach to things, which took away the power, if you like, the full power that the Catholic Church and dominance that the Catholic Church had had. And if you think back to the years prior to this occurring, the Catholic Church had persecuted people in horrific ways throughout the Dark Ages. The torture devices, the Inquisition, these methods of dominance and power and control that were very dark and very just horrific in so many senses, were unfolding throughout the Dark Ages. And Martin Luther's, the Renaissance began and things began to change. Science was welcomed slowly back into favor. Art, culture came back into favor, and the dominance of the Catholic Church as the one religious entity began to crumble. Martin Luther's nailing his thesis to the wall of the church really expedited that and moved that forward and progressed that momentum forward by the rise of a different type of spirituality or religion, Protestantism, and so on. And so we've seen that since that happened, things have accelerated in terms of religious dominance. Perhaps accelerated isn't the right word. We've seen religions become less dominant, less powerful, less controlling throughout society since that time. And it's taken a long time. Saturn was involved in this. Saturn is to take time. Saturn is the long, enduring process. Not instantaneous, not sudden, rocket launches. It is the slow, enduring process. And so this has taken a long time to get there. And we're still not 100% there yet. But it began here, and it came at the end of the Dark Ages of persecution, where 9 million people, thereabouts, were executed simply for, many of them were peasants, many of them were practicing what we practice, astrology, herbalism, traditional medicine, just going about their ordinary peasant lives, and for no reason whatsoever other than the depravity of the church leaders, they were persecuted and executed in horrific ways, 85% of which were women, mind you. I'll also add into that. So terrible, terrible times in the Dark Ages that we have been growing out of at a steady pace. This leads me to why I have all this fuffarad here on my astro wheel. I want to explain how this is working, and it's in doing this that I want to encourage you that we are actually moving beyond the darkness. We are leaving the darkness behind in so many ways, because there's been a lot of fear-mongering in many circles regarding the Pluto-Saturn conjunction. Oh, it's going to mean this, and oh, it's going to mean that. And I want to explain how it is actually for our higher good. Now, I'm very Jupiterian, and I like to look at the big picture of things. I like to look at things with an optimistic lens. So that's why I'm approaching this. Now, I'll start again. This setup here inside my normal astro wheel represents what is known in various traditions as the Great Year. It's a 26,000 year cycle of the sun in a binary system with another star. We believe it to be Sirius. The sun and Sirius circle one another on this 26,000 year cycle. Now, back around 1400, roughly around the time of Christ, we were entering into the age of Pisces. Down here is the age of Pisces, and Jesus was the avatar that heralded the age of Pisces. There were also other avatars at the time. Pisces is the fish. Christianity is often symbolically represented by a fish because it was Jesus being the avatar for the age of Pisces, but there were other avatars too around about this particular time in history. Now, according to the Great Year, we are on this 26,000 year cycle of the equinoxes as they progress through the skies and through the zodiac. So basically, the backdrop for the equinox in spring will be, in the Northern Hemisphere, is Pisces. But we're currently starting to move into the constellation of Aries, and so the spring equinoxes will now begin to be falling in the constellation of Aries, and so on. And this takes, as I've said, 26,000 years to go the whole way around. Now, according to ancient sages in Hindu, they call these periods of time that we go through in the Great Year yugas. I'll talk about those in a minute. And also in the ancient Greek, they were known as ages. We've got the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, Silver Age, and the Golden Age. I'll be referring to those ages, but there are corresponding yugas that go with this. Now, the Golden Age is the age of enlightenment, where we use 100% of our brain power. We communicate by telepathy. There is equality. There is union amongst us all. We are enlightened beings. And this happens, what happened was going on about 12,000 years ago. Some people think that perhaps the city of Atlantis or the Atlantic Empire was actually a product of the Golden Age, the last Golden Age that we experienced. And this is seen here through these signs. It's believed to be these signs here, Virgo, Leo, Libra, and Scorpio here, that encompass the Golden Age. So this was 12,000 years ago as the equinoxes fall at this point here. And then we began a descent, a 12 to 13,000 year descent into the darkness when we are at our furthest point from the star Sirius. When we're close to Sirius in this binary system that goes around, when we're close to Sirius, we are at a more enlightened state, it is believed, and the downward spiral is the ending. And when things we move further away from Sirius and we become less enlightened. We fall into an age of war, especially in the sign of Aries, ages of war and violence. And we're still, experiencing the repercussions of that. We've still got wars, we've still got violence, but we are rising out of it. I'll get to that in a minute. So we've just ended a cycle of coming down in our brain capacity, how much we are able to communicate through our brain, how much we are able to understand in terms of our brain power, and our ability to heal ourselves, our ability to be united, to be equal, to live in love and harmony. All of these things we've reached a very low point in down here in the age of Aries and the age of Pisces. Now Jesus and the other avatars such as Buddha and such as Krishna and so forth, they came as lights for us to remind us of our true capacity, which is who we are in the golden age. And so Jesus could heal people just by looking at them. They just had to touch his cloak and they were healed. So here is this avatar of the golden age come to the darkest point in the human cycle to remind us of who we are and our capacity. But we don't stay here at the lowest point, at the in our depravity, in our in inequality, in persecution, in torture. We don't stay at this low point where there's no refined culture or wisdom or knowledge or understanding. This was particularly pertinent during the Dark Ages, as I said, when we were dominated by people who had power and control and refused to let the masses understand or know. Certain people, such as the priests, had access to biblical knowledge or higher learning of various sorts and medicines and what have you, and they refused to let the common people be empowered in their own right to understand, to know, to think for themselves. So there was dominance and control through knowledge there, and also a hiding of the truth and a whitewashing of the truth, a manipulation of the truth. Remember, Pisces in its shadow side is the wool pulled over your eyes, things being hidden from reality, not being able to see or comprehend or understand the truth. It's very foggy, it's very misty. And this is what happened to humanity throughout the age of Pisces. The wool was pulled over our eyes regarding religion and regarding what was perceived as spirituality during this era, through this season which is known as the Iron Age or the Kali Yuga. And of course we had the Dark Ages at this time, which consisted of dominance of the church, persecution of people left, right and centre. Back in this portion of history, when we were changing from the age of Aries to the age of Pisces, we had people being thrown to the lions for sport and for entertainment. And then we moved more into the age of Pisces, where the church began to, string people up and put... Look, I won't go into some of the torture devices that there were out there. Just go visit the Tower of London or Vlad the Impaler's castle. You'll see some very good displays there of what actually was happening to poor humanity at this time. But the Dark Ages, the days when enlightenment vanished from the earth. And then we hit the Renaissance. And the Renaissance is considered to have started around the mid-1400s. So we started to move out of this Iron Age and move into the Renaissance, where science, where thought, where philosophy, where knowledge came back into favour. And we've been progressing out of this period ever since, because we are now on a trajectory to return to the Golden Age. So we're growing. Our knowledge is increasing. Our capacity, our wisdom, our abilities as human beings is expanding. We are on a growth path that's going to last quite another few thousand years, but eventually, in roughly 10,000 years' time, 10 to 12, we're going to reach the age of enlightenment again. It will happen a bit earlier than that. Basically, when we shift out of the Silver Age here, when the equinoxes are falling in Sagittarius, into the Golden Age. So there's lots to look forward to. We are on a path of growth as humanity. We are on a path of expansion and progress forward. So yes, there's still some hangovers from this darker time. We've still got people in power. We've still got people controlling things. We've still got people using torture devices in various countries, suppressing others, not, dominating in hierarchical ways. This is all happening still. But more and more, we're raising the collective consciousness. We're raising vibration by seeking spirit, by seeking knowledge, by seeking understanding. We are beginning now to leave behind this dark period, this Kali Yuga, this Iron Age, as we have now moved into the Bronze Age. And you can see my little arrow here. This is roughly where we're at. We're at the changeover point in history, moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. So we've left the Iron Age behind. That occurred around here. And we moved into the age of Aquarius. We are moving into the age of Aquarius now. Now, what is really interesting in the light of this Pluto-Saturn conjunction, when it occurred in 1517, obviously the Renaissance had just begun. And this was around here when we had just moved out of the Iron Age and started to accelerate forward, progress forward out of this darkness into the Bronze Age. So this was an exciting time. So obviously, the conjunction of Pluto and Saturn in the sign of Capricorn, the last time it occurred when Martin Luther nailed his thesis to the door of the church, occurred just as we were shifting out of this darkness in 1517, just after the Dark Ages had begun to end and conclude. And we had Galileo, and we had Copernicus, and we had all these, Da Vinci and so forth, doing amazing things to generate some forward momentum into the Renaissance. This occurred here at the switch. But now we're here, where we're moving out of the age of Pisces and into the age of Aquarius. We're really getting momentum now into the Bronze Age. We are really progressing forward. Now, it takes a long time, as I said, 12,000 years to get back to the Golden Age, but we're heading there. So what I wanted to point out through this cycle, and I hope you've been able to keep up with me and follow me on this one. It's certainly quite complex, but it's very encouraging to understand this. We are actually going to have a conjunction of Pluto and Saturn at this point in history. And what is going to happen is more forward momentum out of this. Again, less control by hierarchical domination, such as the church, such as government, such as kings and queens. You think back to the last time the conjunction occurred in Capricorn, and we had, King Henry VIII running around doing his hideous stuff. And, we had Vlad the Impaler, another person who was sort of at the tail end of this Iron Age as well, violent and, pretty much being something of a hero to his people by keeping out the Ottoman Empire from Europe, but he was also very violent in how he did that, and not exactly the most pure or uncorrupt leader that existed, that's for sure. They based the story of Dracula on this man, so what can I say? But this is what was occurring around the last time we had this conjunction, as we left the Iron Age and moved into the Bronze Age. So we are going to see less hierarchy as a result of this conjunction now. Less dominance. I will say it's not going to come without a fight, because people don't like to give up power and control, funnily enough, but it is going to happen, and we're going to start more. There's going to be more momentum now, more of a cycle as we push into the age of Aquarius and see these things fall away, dissolve, and remove themselves from humanity as we move more into the age of Aquarius of equality. So what this conjunction now heralds is the beginning of this period. It's very exciting, and it means better things. So no matter what happens in 2020 to bring about this momentum, this forward push as we rise up into greater enlightenment, no matter what this year brings, the ultimate purpose, the ultimate result is greater growth towards the Golden Age. So I want to encourage us all to sit with what happens. It may cause some struggle and difficulties, But it's going to be better than last time it occurred, you know? We are at a better point in history, a growth point in history. It's going to be so much better this time than last time we had the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto. And it's my belief that we have, 6-7 billion people on the earth. We've all incarnated to experience this moment. That's why we're here. This once in 500-year connection of Pluto and Saturn in the sign of Capricorn. We want to be part of this. We want to put our energy and our vibration into this to give it momentum to push forward into higher levels of consciousness. So I'm excited. I think this is a wonderful time. I think the potential that this could bring us is going to be fabulous. And it is going to come with a lot of patience and a lot of hard work, but it's going to take us to better realms, to better places. Watch out for any theses being nailed to the door of any particular church, especially. Now, what's interesting, the last thing I want to point out about the last time this conjunction occurred in Capricorn is that Uranus, here is Uranus here at the 2nd degree of Taurus. Just disregard my great year cycle now and we'll just look at the planets. The last time this occurred, Uranus was also at 2 degrees of Taurus, making an aspect by trine from this earth sign Taurus to this earth sign Capricorn. And so this connection was playing out as well last time. Sudden change. Now, of course, the result has been a long process dictated by Saturn and his enduring nature, but it was a sudden event that catapulted everything into this momentum forward. Martin Luther nailing his thesis to the door of the church, bang, in we went to mass publication of this thesis that then resulted in the rise of a different type of religion. Of course, I just want to point out as well, there were other things going on in other parts of the world. I do recognize that the whole world doesn't revolve around Western society, but this was what was occurring in Western society that I am informed of and was very much indicative of this process. Uranus at 2 degrees, making a trine to this placement. It's at 2 degrees now, the same place. So we can expect sudden momentum, sudden changes that are going to push us with great integrity, with great authenticity, with great truth into the momentum of the future as we rise up. Uranus is to break free. So this is a gift. Having a gentle trine from Uranus is a gift because it is going to cause us to break free, and it's going to happen easily. There'll still be some upheaval, but the momentum of this is going to happen with ease. We're not going to have to battle our way through and fight. The breakthrough, the change is going to come. And we've noticed, I certainly have in Australia, how grasping the hierarchies have become, how clinging they have become to their old ways, their old habits. I mean, in Australia, coal is the big money spinner, and the old politicians, the boomers, they are so afraid of letting go of this coal energy source and the money it brings. They're clinging to it come hell or high water, and the exploitation of the environment here in Australia is just out of control. So there's this clinging to the old ways of making money, the old ways of doing things. Now that's not sustainable, it's not going to last, and we can expect to see, certainly in Australia, other parts of the world possibly as well, big change regarding how our politicians deal with nature, with the environment. Taurus is to the environment with nature. Uranus is going to support some big change there. Thank goodness. That's just one example. But now I want to get into the personal effects of this on each of us. How are we going to feel this energy? I'll stop the video for a moment and I'm going to remove my great year cycle because that will just confuse things, but I hope it's helped make the process of what we're going through in a big picture level much clearer for you. Okay, so here we are back with my new clean board, ready to rock and roll. What can we say about the conjunction here of Pluto and Saturn? Well, both are cold planets, so there's an energy of a hardness or coldness here that will be playing out. They are also karmic planets. Saturn is the planet of fear as a result of our past life experiences. I'll talk more about that in a minute. And Pluto is the karma of trauma and suffering. Now, I'm a big believer in reincarnation, and so we carry this karma with us. All of us, if we've had one lifetime on the earth prior to this one, we will have had some trauma, we will have had some sense of fear being instilled in us about some particular area of life based on the traumas and sufferings that we've had in the past incarnation. And so it's these karmic traumas and sufferings that are going to be dealt with now, that are going to be brought to the surface now in us at a personal level. And I've been telling my clients all year, do therapy, do therapy, do therapy, because this is a very, very important time in history, in the incarnation of our souls, to rid ourselves from our karmic imprints, the seeds of difficult karma, trauma and sufferings and fears that have been sown in us, mistakes we've made in past lives that we can now release and move on from, so we can continue to rise up in this trajectory towards the golden age. So let's look at Pluto. Pluto is the karma of trauma and suffering. As I said, if we've had one incarnation on this earth, we have had trauma and suffering. Everybody suffers in some way. It could be mental suffering, it could be physical suffering, it could be emotional suffering, it could be from rejection, it could be from poverty. I mean, it really, we all experience suffering. And depending on where Pluto falls in your chart will give you, and the aspects to Pluto will give you a very good idea of what types of traumas you have gone through in past lives. Pluto's also the ego smasher, and he desires to not only rid us, well, he causes the trauma and suffering, but he also wants to heal us. Pluto is the transformer. He does this through smashing our ego, smashing our pride. That's what Pluto does. Now, I want to read you a little bit from a brilliant astrologer who I adore, Jeffrey Wolf Green, and what he had to say about Pluto as the ego smasher and representative of our karmic wounds. Now, he writes, I would agree that Pluto represents the biggest wound in our soul, in the sense that our soul has been wounded ever since it had a patriarchal transition and experienced the progressive suppression of natural law. So what this means is, with the Kali Yuga came the rise of patriarchy, and therefore, as I mentioned earlier, 85% of the 9 million people who were executed were women throughout the Dark Ages. And so our soul has been wounded. Like if we were the brother of, someone who was hanged or burnt at the stake, or we were the son of someone who was drowned, we would still suffer, just like the person who was wounded through the actual experience of torture. And so since this patriarchal dominance through the Dark Ages came about, we have experienced this as Jeffrey Wolf Green says here, the progressive suppression of natural law, of our natural self, our natural inclination towards unity with the earth, towards brotherhood and sisterhood, towards family, and our right to a safe, secure life here on earth, which we experience in the Golden Age, but not in the Dark Ages, as I said. So I'll just repeat that again, just so that it makes sense. I would agree, writes Jeffrey Wolf Green, that Pluto represents the biggest wound in the sense that our soul has been wounded ever since it had a patriarchal transition, an incarnation in the patriarchal era of the Dark Ages, which we've mostly all had, and we have experienced the progressive suppression of natural law, of our natural self. Anytime we have anything natural that is suppressed, it's going to become the basis of distortion and rage and wounds, because now our soul is being asked to live in violation of its natural self, of natural law. So of course, Pluto is going to connect with this deep wound, this violation. And then the question becomes, what is this wound connected to? And Jeffrey Wolf Green's answer is to the soul. So what Pluto is representing is a wound to the soul. And this is what is being brought up for us now, this karmic wound to our soul that is, we need to restructure, we need to reframe, we need to heal from in order to move forward again towards the Golden Age. But Pluto is also the great transformer. He is all about change. He's about death to these karmic wounds and re-emergence into the blossom time, into the springtime, the growth that comes out of the composting of our wounds, of our hurts. That's what Pluto represents. Superficiality is not acceptable to Pluto. He will not tolerate mask wearing. He wants truth. He brings intensity and he brings focus into our lives. So we become, as we all know, Pluto is a very intense and controlling planet, but he wants to bring this intensity at this time in history and focus into our personal soul. What is our personal soul wound? What is our karmic wound? Where can we change our life and heal our life? He wants us to focus on these things. This is one of the calling cards of a Pluto transit such as this. He shines a light into our darkness. I often use the analogy of going into the basement. Go down to the basement, it's covered with cobwebs and there's junk down there and there's a dripping tap and it's dank and it's damp. You want to clean that place up. And the basement for us is the psyche, our soul, where all these hidden things hide and fester, where our wounds are, where our traumas are. We want to shine a light down there and get the broom out and start cleaning it up. And we do that through therapy, and that's why Pluto rules therapy and psychoanalysis. So the more you can involve yourself in these therapies, art therapy, music therapy, dance therapy, kickboxing, yoga, journaling, writing letters to people who've hurt you, whatever it takes. Pluto is the therapy we need to clean up our basement, to clean up our psyche and get rid of these wounds. The more we can shine this light into our dark basement, the more things are brought up where we can see them, the less they're going to have impact on us. It's a great time to do that right now. The more we ignore our inner psychic mess and our gunk, the more Pluto's going to smash us. So it's better to work with Pluto than against him and deny him and put our head in the sand and ignore it. Pluto gives us the chance to evolve and be reborn from our sufferings. We've got to always remember that with Pluto. Yes, he will smash our ego. Yes, he can make life hard. Yes, he brings trauma and cataclysms. But yes, he brings blossom time. Yes, he brings renewal at a higher level than we were before. He brings enlightenment and understanding through the process of refining us through suffering. He strips away what's unnecessary. He strips away what is superficial in our lives, what we don't need in order to move forward. He wants us to have deep experiences. He wants us to have transformation of whatever is not working for us in our lives. Be they thought processes, be they our lifestyle, be they a career that we just aren't engaged with any longer, be it a relationship that we've had enough of, be it, an existence of poverty that we're just so sick of. He wants to transform these things for us. So it is a time now of intense transformation of these things. Pluto's all about letting go of whatever holds us back. And these are the things that hold us back from being purified and having deep and meaningful life experience. This is what Pluto wants to let go of. I'm a Generation Xer with Pluto in Libra. So Pluto in Libra generation, we're Generation X. And of course, the big purification that Pluto has been doing for my generation is in relationships. Divorce is at a very high level because we are learning to purify and up-level from relationship karma and relationship wounds and hurts. Pluto in Libra generation, this is our mission. Pluto in Scorpio, different mission. Pluto in Sag, different mission. And Pluto in Virgo, different mission. I'm not going to go into all of those there. I'll do a whole video on that. That's a very deep topic. But Pluto is here to transform, like I said, of whatever is holding us back from our rising up, from a deep, meaningful, empowered experience of this incarnation. We can't fight Pluto. When we have a Pluto transit, such as I'm having, Pluto is currently squaring my moon. It's a massive thing, and he will always win. So it is better to go with your heart at this time, to trust your instincts. Like if you feel like I'm sick to death of this relationship and I just can't do it anymore, but God, everyone will judge me if I get divorced, I'm afraid you're just going to have to go through the process of getting divorced. It'll be easier for you to follow your heart, which is, I need to leave this relationship, than to try and stick it out, because Pluto will smash you to smithereens if you try and stick it out. You're better to follow your heart and your feelings right now if you are having a Pluto transit. And we're all having this collective Pluto transit right now. So make it easy on yourself, especially if you've got any planets at 22 or 23, 24 degrees of, as I said, Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra particularly. If you've got planets there, go easy on yourself. Follow your heart, follow your instinct now, and trust that the universe is unfolding the way it's meant to. Ask yourself, what is being suppressed in you? What are you denying? Are you denying that this relationship is dead and going nowhere? Are you denying that your job is just a dead-end road for you? Are you denying that maybe you've got an attitude, you're suppressing your knowledge that you're got an attitude that is destructive, where you're out to destroy other people and you're just ignoring the fact? Well, Pluto's going to smash that out of you and it's going to change your relationship, it's going to change your career. You need to do some self-analysis where Pluto's concerned and really dig deep and look hard at yourself. You need to do therapy, I would say, with Pluto. Do therapy that allows you to do this, especially during this very heavy and very important Pluto season in Capricorn. So that's Pluto, and that's what his message is to us. Saturn is our fears, especially the fears and the hang-ups that we've had from our childhood or from past lives. Saturn is like the rule giver, the daddy of the horoscope, if you want to call him that. This authority figure who, you imagine you're a young teenage 16-year-old girl going out to a party and dad's sitting there reading the paper in old school ways. Maybe he's looking at an iPad these days. He's reading the paper, looking at his iPad, and you're about to head out the door to go party, and he says, now you be home by 10 o'clock. And you're like, Dad, 10 o'clock, that's, come on, everyone else goes home at midnight. And he's like, no, not my daughter, you'll be home at 10 o'clock. That's Saturn. He's putting rules and parameters in place for our best, for our own good, not to be a pain in the ass, but the intent is to protect us. That's what Saturn is like. So yes, he likes the rules. He likes structure. He wants things to be just so. But there's a reason behind it. And this is because maybe in past lives we've been wounded. He's like this rule giver, the authority figure. He is our psychic protector, wanting to keep us from making the same mistakes as we made in past life situations. This is why we have fears. Now, I'll give you an example from my chart. Saturn's in my 5th house. I've had past life regressions where I've seen hideous relationships, love relationships. 5th house is love and love affairs. And of course, this lifetime I've had real difficulty in the realm of love. It's been a very awkward, I feel lame in that regard. I struggle with love. Not only is Saturn in my 5th house, but he's conjunct Venus, the planet of love, and in debilitation. So there's this real struggle that I've had with love and love relationships, feeling worthy, feeling that I am good enough. All these things have been the millstone around my neck, my Achilles heel, so to speak, to having a successful full life. But the reason they're there is because I've seen in my past life regressions the woundings that have been caused to my self-esteem and to my capacity to have relationships through past life experiences. So Saturn has put fears here. Fears in this realm of my life, so I don't make the same mistakes, so I don't jump headlong into something that wounds me in the same way again. He is putting psychic protection there. That is why Saturn is the karma of fear. From the mistakes we've made in past lives, we want to protect ourselves from doing the same thing again in the future. But he's also hard work. Again, in the 5th house, I have 3 children. I'm a single mum. It's been very hard work for me to raise my children on my own, but it's part of my karmic mission, my karmic retribution, if you want to call it that, to refine my soul through this purging of Saturn karma. Hard work is required wherever Saturn is. For me, it's with children. You'd need to look at where Saturn falls in your chart, in what house in whole sign astrology, to understand where your karmic hard work is required. Saturn is also blockage, and he tends to block something from its full, easy manifestation. So it doesn't, like, for example, love for me has not come with ease. It's come with a great deal of angst and heartache and struggle, and the easy potential, the easy manifestation of where Saturn sits does not occur. For example, in the ninth house, he might inhibit your spiritual understanding, your ability to go into that state of trust in the universe. You might have to work very hard to grow your faith. And of course, wherever Saturn falls, there's going to be that kind of impact. Here, we've got him sort of sitting, what is he in? At the moment, we've got Saturn sitting there in the, let's say, the 11th house. Might be rewards and gains are difficult to come by, and you have to work very hard for the rewards and gains you earn in life. So depending on where Saturn falls is where you're going to have to work hard in life to achieve, and that's just part of your karma from past life experience. He likes things done right, Saturn. The right way, no shortcuts, no easy road. He wants you to get there through perseverance, endurance, and determination. He seeks to restructure our lives when he transits a house, as he's doing now. He's transiting Capricorn right now, so he's seeking to restructure wherever Capricorn falls in your chart. And this will often be a restructuring through hard work. So we're going to explore a little of that as we go along. Now together, these two, the two planets of karma, karmic fears, and the planet of karmic trauma and suffering, together, they can get quite tough for us at a personal level, particularly in the house that they are meeting in. We can feel restriction. We can feel limitation in that realm of life. We're forced to use our willpower to change an aspect of who we are that has outlived its usefulness. Pluto is our strength of will, the power of our will. It's even beyond sort of human capacity, willpower. Mars is willpower. Yes, it's a very human willpower. Pluto is this celestial planet that represents, beyond human levels of willpower. And so, even if we don't realize it, Pluto in Capricorn, wherever Capricorn falls in our personal chart, is forcing us to use our willpower to change certain circumstances in our life and things that are no longer serving us regarding that particular realm. So we need to exercise also patience, which is represented by Saturn, while these energies do their work. So, for example, I have a friend who's been going through hell the last couple of years, and it's all correlated to the movement of Saturn through Capricorn for this person. Unfortunately, Saturn will not be permanently leaving Capricorn until December 2020. He will have a little bit of a sojourn in Aquarius throughout April and a bit into May. But overall, he doesn't get out of there until December. So we've still got a year to go of dealing with this stuff. We need to exercise patience right now while the energies do their work, while the changes are manifested for us and restructured. Remember, though, the overall big picture is that we're rising up into greater consciousness. So stick with it. Allow the energies to do their work. Allow them to process as they need to. Be prepared for difficulties. But it's also possible, yes, we've got to be prepared for difficulties, but through the illustration I just shared, we have actually been feeling this at a collective level and at a personal level for some time. The hallmarks are there, the signposts are there, that we're actually changing things, evolving things, purging and renewing things. It's been going on, not just now when this conjunction occurs on the 6th, and then on the exact degree on the 12th. It's not just happening then, it's been happening for months, and in some cases, the case of my friend who's been going through a dreadful court case for 3 years, it's been going on for ages, So we've been feeling this for some time, and we can be experiencing this energy through maybe feeling a loss of a relationship, loss of pride, loss of reputation. Maybe we're feeling extra burdens. Life has become very hard and burdensome for us. Maybe we've been feeling more hardships, more frustrations at this time as well. This is a result of these two making their connection in the sky. But we've already been feeling it. So don't think that, January's going to be hell on earth. No, we've actually already been in this energy, in this zone. It's part of what's been playing out for a while now. And just because they're conjuncting doesn't mean it's going to suddenly get worse in January. It just means more refining, more purifying, more leaving behind the underworld, cleaning out the basement, facing our fears, and enabling us to rise into the rebirth and the blossom time that is promised with this energy. Now, the last time that Pluto and Saturn were conjunct, I'm not talking back in 1517, I'm talking the last time they were conjunct, which is roughly 30 years ago, sort of 1981, 82. In Australia, we were going through a particularly bad season of drought and fire. And if you've been watching the news lately, anywhere in the world, you'll also know what's Australia going through right now? Drought and fire. The same themes are playing out. We're seeing a repeat. So I want to ask you, if you were alive in 1981, 1982, maybe you were born then, but if that was the case and you were alive and you can remember that period of time, what was playing out for you in your life personally that you might be getting a repeat of that needs to be addressed and purged and released? So look back 30 years ago, where were you at? Who were you? What was significant in your life? What were you enjoying about your life? What were you not so happy about in your life? And I can tell you I'm not going to tell you exactly how old I was, but I was in primary school and I was going through a little heartache, a primary school love heartache that probably set me up for a lot of the trauma I experienced with love in later years. So very interesting, very telling to look back at what we were experiencing, what we identify with, and what we remember about 1981-82. On a bigger scale, governments and bureaucrats can actually be very pressuring towards their constituents now. These old hierarchies, they're becoming fearful, they're becoming protective, they're becoming grasping as well at the moment, sensing that something is going to shake, something is going to give, there's going to be a restructuring of their territory that they've had a good grip on since the Industrial Revolution. Well, hello neoliberalism, I think you're about to go. Thank God for that. But you can imagine these Rupert Murdochs and people like that, they're all not giving an inch as much as possible, and world leaders and what have you. So we can expect that during this time of change that they are going to be fearful, protective, and grasping, and that can then pressure us. Okay, so heads up about that one. That can be just a hallmark, just a signature of the shift that's occurring. If we're feeling pressured from the government or let down by the government or disgusted in our government, then that's usually a hallmark of this shift that is unfolding. I want to encourage everybody to put aside some money. It's always difficult to talk about finances. I do find financial astrology particularly interesting, but it is always wise. I'm not I have Venus conjunct Saturn, so I do like to hoard or save or have something set aside for a rainy day. That's just my nature, and it's certainly got me through a few tough times. I'm also a big believer in generosity, a big believer in sharing. So just because you're hanging on to something doesn't mean that you lack the necessary generosity and kindness that we need in the world. It's all about balance, remember. But at this time, Pluto conjunct Saturn, it's a really good idea to have a little bit of money aside, if you can manage it, just to shore you up should anything occur. And that could be just, maybe you decide you're going to go without coffee for a couple of months, and instead of spending $20 a week on coffee, you just put it into an account and just have a couple of $100 there just in case you might need it. Pluto conjunct Saturn asks us to use our wisdom in regard to how we navigate life. And we must get responsible. We have to get ruthless about whatever is impeding us. So take a good look at your life. If we are feeling, if you're feeling that your relationship's holding you back from being your best self, if you're feeling that you don't have enough time to invest in your spiritual life because your career demands so much or whatever, then, look at that. How can you change that? Your friendships, are they lifting you up or are they pulling you down? This is a time we have to get, like I said, responsible and ruthless about getting rid of what is holding us back and not allowing us to evolve and grow. So the way through this, the way we can deal with this is to practice acceptance and to practice stoicism. These are key. We need to make space in our life for transformation to occur, and it's through, we're accepting what is. Very Eckhart Tollever's. Accepting this moment. This is exactly the way this moment is meant to be. I can allow this. being stoic. I can endure this. I've got my little stash of money put aside. I'm restructuring my job. I'm restructuring my relationships, and I can push through this with endurance. Very Saturnian, to practice acceptance, to practice stoicism. So don't take shortcuts now during this conjunction period. Be prepared to work hard. If you are sitting back thinking life is going to just dump, a bunch of gold nuggets in your lap and everything's going to be happily ever after, not going to be the case, okay? You must go about things the long, enduring, hardworking way. So, if you need to go through a process of divorce, well, you must dot your I's and cross your T's in that process. If you're looking to change jobs, you need to assess, have I got the right credentials to apply for this new job? You must go about things the proper way. It's a time, a time when you do not want to at all consider cheating, law breaking, abuse, violence, rage, stalking, manipulation, or if you do start to go down those roads, you are going to encounter a strong authoritarian response. Because Pluto is these things. It's the dark side, it's the law breaking, it's the criminal activity, it's the manipulation, it's the stalking, it's the controlling. Saturn is the law. Saturn is the rules. And remember, he's that psychic protector, that authority figure that says, And so if you attempt now during this conjunction, during this period, to do something a bit dodgy, the law's going to come down very hard on you. There will be a strong authoritarian response to you if you undertake those sorts of things. So maybe you've been considering running a smear campaign against someone on social media that you don't like. Well, hello, you do that and you are going to experience the repercussions for yourself of, maybe you've got a business that's online and you are going to be the one to suffer from those actions. Your business might get wiped off the internet and you lose all your clients or whatever. So we have to be really careful with integrity at this time. We need to excrete, we need to compost, we need to vomit out of our life whatever has to go. Don't fight what needs to happen. This is the main reoccurring theme that this is all about, because we are getting rid of old karma. And we might be clinging to it. No, I don't want to change my attitude about this. I'm sticking with this no matter what. And things need to be purged from our lives, removed from our lives in order to make space for the blossom time to enter in. So if you are losing a job or a relationship or, you are losing a home or something, allow what needs to happen. Trust that the universe actually has your back and that what is to be will be, and that something better lies around the corner because of this. The same with the big hierarchies. The more fighting is done over, clinging to the old ways, the old far right-wing extremist habits, these things are going to actually cause detriment in the long term. The more we can let go and let, more equality enter into our political systems and our hierarchical systems, then the easier road we're going to have. But this clinging, this hanging on is going to cause trouble. So maybe you're the one who needs to walk away from some sort of battle with somebody else. Or maybe you're the one who needs to leave a job that you've been clinging to. Or maybe you're the one who needs to, approach a friend and try and create some sort of reconciliation. These are the things we need to be considering now to change the dynamics of our lives. And again, once more, I'll reiterate, it comes from doing that soul exploration, looking within. So allow change and you can rebuild and transform your life for the better. So be encouraged, everybody. We are on a trajectory towards stepping up the ladder of our own personal enlightenment as well as the ladder of our collective enlightenment as we move up through the Bronze Age now and enter into the Age of Aquarius, as I said in the beginning of this reading. So whatever is unfolding now is a step up. Keep reminding yourself of that as you navigate perhaps some hairy times of change. Keep trusting that this is going to purge, especially if you're doing the work, because Saturn asks us to do the work. If you're doing the work of looking within, exploring your karma, understanding what needs therapy, what needs to go, what needs to be purged, if you're doing that work, understand it's taking you to a higher manifestation, a higher level. You have incarnated to experience this, remember. So see this experience rather than, as, yuck, I hate this and why does my life suck? Rather than looking at it that way, see this as a chance to transform. See this as a chance to go deep, to reach out to any forms of therapy and self-analysis that you can to purify and to create space for enlightenment to enter in. It's so much of our success in life depends on our perspective. And if you think about how the Buddhists view things, and actually many other schools such as A Course in Miracles and things like that, they don't see this life as the be-all, end-all. There is a greater, bigger picture. In fact, the things that occur to us are just superficial, really, and beyond that is the witness of our lives, which is our soul, our consciousness, witnessing our lives, and that's where reality lies. So these are just external circumstances that are refining us, purifying us, helping our souls to evolve. And if we see it that way, then we tend to find more strength to navigate the darkness and come to a place of enlightenment. Well, how do we cope with all this personally? Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about the polarity point of Pluto being a way to find balance through the traumas and through the suffering. And this applies at this time as well. This is where we can find balance to counteract this intensity. So I've talked for quite a long time. This has been a very long intro, but we had a lot to cover, a lot of ground and territory to explore. Now I want to just whiz through the signs and where this is happening and where you can find the polarity point of Pluto to give you a sense of balance during this time. So let's take a look. I'll start with Pisces and go backwards. So Pisces, well, this is all falling in your 11th house, on your 11th house to the 5th house axis. So Pisces have actually been able to navigate this time with a little more ease because we haven't got any malefic houses being triggered through this conjunction. But we need to allow change, allow transformation, practice acceptance, practice stoicism, and initiate patience into the changes that are being brought for us in this realm here, the 11th house realm, that has to do with our friendships, our networks, the social connections that we make, our rewards and our gains. We need to be patient about receiving rewards and gains in life and put in the hard work and the endurance. But the polarity point, the way out for this, for Pisces people, the coping mechanism is through the 5th house because it sits opposite Pluto. So coping can, the way to sort of ease this Pluto energy is to focus for us right now on our self-expression, on being creative, on loving our children, on creating romance in our life and pleasure in our life, beautiful 5th house things. So it might mean taking time to read a book, or it might mean writing that great novel that you've always wanted to write. It might mean doing a painting over the summer holidays. It might mean going away on a holiday, like when summer here in Australia, it might mean going away on a summer retreat to the beach with your kids, having fun with your children, investing good quality fun times with your children if you have any, or as I said, getting creative, finding your voice, finding your sense of self-expression if you're Pisces, and also if you have the opportunity to invest in love and romance, create that opportunity. Run with that opportunity because that is where healing is going to be. I will be going away for a little bit with my special friend, and that is going to be my antidote to this conjunction period of having a pleasurable, fun time in that regard. So the next, we'll start with Pisces because they often have to wait, and we'll go to Aries because we know they don't like to wait. So Aries people, well, this is where you need to allow change and transformation. You need to practice acceptance and stoicism. You need to practice having patience in the realm of the 10th house for the changes, the purging, the releasing, the the transformation that's to occur for you in the 10th house realm of career, worldly achievements, public reputation, and how you are seen by the world. So that's the realm that you are needing to put energy into. However, the polarity point, as I said in the introduction, of Pluto sits in the sign of Cancer, which for you, Aries rising people, is your 4th house. And so it's the 4th house realm where you can find healing at the moment. If there's a lot of trauma, a lot of difficulties, going into the 4th house, getting in touch with your emotions, understanding your feelings, doing some deep introspective work now can be very, very healing and cathartic for you because it's the Pluto polarity point. You might also like to connect with home, go home for a visit to mum and dad's, or get back involved in your community in some way that you came from. Going into putting some time and energy into your home and your home life, and having that private space of retreat and escape for you in your home space. That is where you'll find nurturance during this particular conjunction. So spend some time at home, spend some time with family. Spend some time looking at your emotional state and your emotional well-being again through therapy. This is the polarity point that can give you some balance to this difficult conjunction. So if you're Taurus rising, well, this intensity of Capricornian energy is falling in your 9th house, and this is the realm of belief and morality. It's connected to religion, it's connected to cultural practices, it's connected to inspirational figures, the gurus, the mentors. And so it's in these realms that you're going to need to practice accepting and allowing change and transformation, practice stoicism and having patience for the changes and the transformations to occur. So for example, one of the things I think most Taurus people are going to experience is this change of belief system. The way you have believed about life, the worldview that you've had, your understanding of life prior to this connection in the sky is going to be transformed, and you're going to release old attitudes that do not serve you regarding beliefs and worldviews and attitudes and philosophies about life. So you can expect change, and because Taurus is a fixed sign, it can be very hard for Taurus people to let go of fixed ideas about life and who they are and so on. So you can expect that big change is going to occur there, and it can be difficult for Taurus people, although with a trine to your sign, it may happen easier than not, which is a blessing. So you might find that that's happening in your life in an easy way. But if you are struggling with this energy at this time and difficult circumstances and so on, the way out, the way to cope is through the polarity point in Cancer. The polarity point to Pluto is where we find healing, and this is where you need to direct your attentions in order to cope right now. This polarity point in Cancer means it's your 3rd house, and it's in that realm that you need to direct your attention. Do lots of reading, read some books, learn a new skill, go and do a craft course. Maybe you want to learn how to, sew from vintage patterns or something, or learn to do braided rugs, or you learn to do some sort of jewelry making or something like that. By focusing on skills and abilities, learning something new, reading new things, this can provide some healing and some focus and balance for you during this difficult time. I'd also encourage you, Taurus rising people, if you want to take short trips, it's a good time now to do that as well. Take a little holiday, go down to the beach for a weekend or something like that, or, trip up to the mountains, whatever floats your boat. It's a good time for doing those sorts of short trips in your localized area that could be very supportive for you and help provide you some balance and some healing at this time when we're dealing with these intense energies of Pluto. All right, Gemini rising people. Well, hello guys. You guys have been going through quite a tough time, because all of this is falling in your 8th house of transformation. So more than any other sign, Gemini sun, rising, or moon signs are going to be very transformed at the end of this process. Who you were 3 years ago is not who you're going to be at the end of 2020. Let me tell you, this is a time of going into the underworld and being reborn and re-empowered and entering into your higher level self, the blossom time, the potential. The promise is great for you guys, but the work must be done. Saturn will call you to account. You must work hard. You must allow change and transformation into your life. You must practice acceptance and stoicism. You must use Saturnian patience right now while the process is playing out. Maybe you're going through, the finalization of a divorce. The 8th house, 6th, 7th, and 8th house are connected to divorce. And so it's quite possible that, you're waiting for an outcome of a divorce and you must practice patience there. Maybe there's been the promise of an inheritance and of some sort, and again, you need to be very patient about that coming to you. Maybe your finances could be transformed through all this process, but it's going to require hard work and patience. Maybe your understanding of the higher realms is being transformed. Maybe how you perceive the spiritual realms, the energetic realms, the mystic realms is going through a process of change. And by the end of this process, at the end of 2020, your ideas about mysticism and spiritualism and so forth are completely different. But it's a enduring process of transformation that you're going through. The 8th house is also anything to do with healing. It's a house of healing. So you guys, again, I just reiterate, karmic healing is a very important topic. Doing past life regression work could bring up for you something that's quite horrific from a past life, but needs to be released, needs to be addressed. It's kind of like a soul retrieval process that needs to happen, where you can let go of the grip that past life trauma has on you. So if you're brave, do it. I really encourage you, Geminis, do past life regression work, especially now around the time of the conjunction. But if it's all getting heavy for you, if it feels weighty, all this huge transformation that you're going through, the two planets of karma connecting in the house, or difficult karma rather, connecting in the house of transformation, then you need to focus on your polarity point. And this is Cancer, your 2nd house. And for you guys, it's a lovely way to deal with this. Take time out for you. This is the house of outer security, like materially in the world, and inner security within the self. So take time out to, enjoy the pleasures of life. Go for a picnic in the park. Have a beautiful, lunch out with a friend. I know it's sort of winter time over in the Northern Hemisphere, I love those beautiful pictures on Pinterest you see of amazing hot chocolates. 90% of the time I eat really healthy. That means I can sometimes feel that I can indulge. 2nd house is indulgence. Indulge in something beautiful, like one of those decadent hot chocolates with whipped cream and a chocolate flake sticking out the top and that sort of thing. So, maybe you want to spend some time over this conjunction period where you can go and enjoy that, or take time out where you have a soak in the bath with candles, read your favorite books, watch your favorite films, do things that bring pleasure to you, and look to love the self. Indulgence is one way of loving the self and being kind to the self, not whipping the self, not criticizing the self, not being hard on yourself, but nourishing yourself, nurturing yourself. Cancer is to nurture. So whatever nurturance looks like to you, take time out to do that now, because it is going to balance this energy that is playing out right now in Cancer. It will provide that polaric harmony in your life. So do that and you will cope so much better. Okay, Cancer rising. Well, obviously, this is falling in your 7th house. So there's a big activation of 7th house energy for you now. You might meet a karmic partner, somebody who you had a past life experience with and that you need to resolve issues with now. Somehow that you need to address karmic mistakes. Saturn is karmic mistakes and fears. Pluto is karmic trauma. Maybe you'll meet someone, you might not know it, but it might be somebody who did you wrong in a past life in a very traumatic way or something, and you're purging this now, you're releasing this now. So this can be heavy when you're having this conjunction occur in your 7th house, but know that it's part of the process of up-leveling, like I said in the beginning of this video. And your way to cope with it is to honor yourself this time round. Listen to your inner voice and trust your inner wisdom, your inner guidance, because the polarity point to Capricorn is Cancer. Cancer is your first house. It's about you. It's about survival. It's about you and your journey. Be a bit selfish, Cancer people. At this time when Pluto is conjuncting Saturn. Be a bit selfish. No, I'm not going to see that movie because I don't like Jean-Claude Van Damme films. I'm going to go and see a romantic comedy instead. Whatever it happens to look like, where you assert yourself. You take a stand. You decide for yourself what is right for you. And this is going to balance out the karma in relationships for you by being a bit selfish during this time. And that doesn't mean being a mean bitch or a nasty piece of work, but it does mean self-honor and being assertive. And this is a muscle that Cancer people may need to practice flexing a little more often than not. It doesn't come particularly easy to a sign that's always about nurturing others, helping others, supporting others, being there for others. This time, at this season, it's about you and being a bit selfish, being a bit Aries. First house is Aries energy, and it's about being, I'm putting me first. Put yourself first now, and it will help to balance and unravel the old karma that might pop up at this time that you need to purge. Okay. Leo rising people. Boom. 6th house. This is where the energy is falling for you guys. And so it is in this realm, the 6th house, that you need to allow change and transformation, that you need to practice acceptance, that you need to practice stoicism, and you need to be patient. And of course, all of this is happening to do with your work, your health, and your service to the world. So Leo rising people, this conjunction is bringing some sort of karmic energy to the 6th house. You might need to be patient about a job that you're in, the job that pays the bills. This is a need to be a bit patient. That you might need to practice being a bit stoic in your dealings with other, say, your employees. If you run a business, people that you employ, you might need to practice being a bit patient and a bit stoic about managing them. Or dealing with them, or you might find that your health needs addressing in some way. You need to, maybe your body is changing, maybe you're going through the change of life, menopause, or maybe you've had some sort of sickness or something like that, and it's transforming who you are and changing who you are. You need to accept this change that's coming. Not so much embrace it, but work with it as best you can. And of course, our health is a very, very important thing in our life. We may need to address and make changes to our routine, to how we exercise, to how we eat. And this is where we're being drawn to direct our attention. Now, karmically, there might be some issue of trauma and suffering that occurred in a 6th house manner. Maybe you were a slave in a past life. This is a house connected with being in slavery or as a servant or something. Maybe you were in slavery in a past life, and these two karmic planets connecting is bringing up issues for you regarding past life experiences as a slave or as a servant, or perhaps it was more to do with the fact that you might have been very unwell in a past life, and now you are being called to direct attention to taking care of yourself. Maybe you were very poor in a past life. This is a house of poverty. Maybe you were very like I said, diseased or sick or underprivileged or uneducated in some way, and it's left scars and wounds that deep within your psyche that need to be addressed now. And maybe you're getting little triggerings. Maybe there's I've got a bit of suffering with my health, or maybe I've got a bit of a feeling of I can't get the right job for me. I always feel like I'm just in service to everybody, and where's my recognition? Where's my honoring? And these feelings can pop up, and this is coming from past karma that caused you trauma and suffering in a past life in some way. But there is a way that we need to, like I said, to allow the change and transformation this is bringing. Maybe you need to feel this humility of my health is not that good, or I'm in a job that's not really cutting the mustard for me at a soul level. Maybe we need to just feel into the humility, which is 6th house. 6th house is to be humble. And allow the changes to play out, changes to our body, maybe through menopause or through some sickness or whatever it happens to be, to our work. Allow changes that are happening now to play out that are going to take us into a better realm eventually. as I've described in the intro to this reading. But how can you cope? It's by focusing on the polarity point to Pluto. Pluto is trauma and suffering, and the polarity point gives us a sense of balance to this, balances out our traumas and sufferings. So by taking a holiday, Leo people, go take a holiday now. I'm Leo sun, I'm taking a holiday for about a week, and I just can't wait. So that's going to be something that I hope will balance out my karma in the 6th house. So holidays are great, any form of escapism. If you can't take a holiday, go get your fingernails done at a boutique or hairdressing salon or somewhere that's sort of away from the mainstream everyday ordinary life. You might like to focus on your creativity as well. This is a house of very powerful creativity, divine creativity. Allow yourself space to experience that and go into that. Do spiritual work, read spiritual books at this time. These kinds of endeavors are going to help balance things out and help you cope, might even give you some epiphanies, some spiritual insight, which is also the 12th house. That's where you can get sort of those psychic downloads that help you deal with the current situations that you may find yourself in with health, well-being, money in terms of, having enough to pay the bills, and also your daily work, your daily routines that could be experiencing some upheaval through this conjunction. Okay, Virgo rising. Well, this is falling in the 5th house. So this 5th house area, children, lovers, romance, sex, self-expression, creative self-expression. Well, this is where you need to allow change to evolve in your life, where you need to be a bit stoic about things, where you need to have patience. So this could be with your children right now. You might need to exercise patience with something that's going on with your children. You might need to exercise patience with something going on with your lover, or patience in your sex life. Maybe it's not going the way you want it to. Things aren't really chuffing along in the way you want, but maybe you need to practice and exercise patience with your lover, with your partner. Maybe you need to allow change to your creative process. This is a house of creative self-expression and creative intelligence, and so maybe this is where you need to allow some change to enter in. Maybe you have, you work in a creative field, or you're a very practically creative field as Virgo rising, and this is where you need to allow the changes to come in and direct you to some sort of different creative expression. And maybe you're struggling with letting go of doing it this way. Maybe you're a designer and you've always worked with this sort of theme. Maybe, like, let's say you're an architect and you love the whole Queen Anne American architecture, and all your designs have that flavor to them. But then, the universe is trying to change your creative self-expression from reflecting that to going more like Frank Lloyd Wright type architecture now, and it's trying to direct you into a new expression that's very, very different to what you've always done. So there will be some shifts, some change that you need to allow and make space for. That's just a crazy example that can play out in many, many varied ways. But if you're struggling with the change, if you're struggling with practicing stoicism, then you need to find a release valve through the polarity point, which is Cancer, your 11th house, connecting with friends, socializing, being part of large groups, doing some humanitarian work. These kinds of things are going to be very, very healing and cathartic for you now. So if you're struggling during the next week or so, go hang out with your mates. Go, do maybe something progressive. You might like to go do some gaming together or something like that online, or maybe you might like to go to a science fair or something. But just hang out with your buddies. It's going to be a very healing, cathartic process for you to connect. And even if you can't go and hang out with them, ring them on the phone, or Skype them or whatever, and just connect wherever you can. It's connection and human interaction for Virgo rising people that's going to provide that balance that's needed during this time. Libra rising or sun or moon as well, I should also point that out. Libra rising or sun or moon, this is falling for you in the 4th house. And so it's the 4th house where you're going to need to practice stoicism. So maybe, there are some changes unfolding with your relationship with your mother. That's certainly the case for me, and I'm Libra moon. So maybe there are some changes happening there. You need to allow those changes. You need to allow the transformation of relationships with family, with the matriarchal line, with your community, with even your home and how your home works, and your home life. Allow changes in. Accept the situation. Practice stoicism. Maybe you aren't going to be the one who can cause a different relationship with your mother or your maternal line, and maybe you just need to let it be. Maybe you need to let it go. Accept and practice stoicism there. Allow patience to be to unfold regarding the restructuring that's occurring in this realm. But if this gets difficult for you, Libra people, the solution is to focus on the polarity point and find release and escape through that house. And for you, it's the 10th house. So it's a time when you can focus on career, when you can focus on your worldly achievements. So maybe that you have a project in the wings that you've been working on for some time, or get stuck into it. Really throw your energy there now, and you can find a sense of balancing this difficult energy. Leave what is to be, and find the balance with chasing your career dreams, chasing the worldly aspirations, the legacy that you want to leave, the heritage, the lineage you want to create, rather than focusing on the heritage and lineage that you come from. Create your new legacy and put your energy there, and it will be very healing and helpful and supportive for you during this time of upheaval. In fact, for the whole year ahead, to be honest. Scorpio rising puts this heavy-duty energy in the 3rd house. So it's here that you're going to need to practice stoicism and endurance and perseverance. You're going to have to allow change that's coming with this conjunction, guys. So this might mean a change in your skills. Might mean that you have to address a skill set that isn't at the top quality that you would ordinarily aspire to, and you might need to let go of that skill. Let's say, for example, that you love to do woodwork, but you just didn't have the ability that your mate down the road has at creating that beautiful wooden sculpture, and you realize, I've got to let that go. I've got to allow change. I've got to find a new endeavor. Not so much, we're not talking hobbies here either. It might be, maybe there's some skill you've been using in your career and you're just not cutting the mustard with it, and you need to let it go. So it could be that you need to do some new learning, some new skills, up leveling. You might need to get perhaps a new marketer for your business. You might need to undertake a complete reorganization of your small business, because 3rd house is small business. So there's a lot of change, transformation, upheaval that's going on in your 3rd house right now, and you need to practice patience and stoicism for this. But if it's getting a bit much, if you're feeling overwhelmed by all the change, all the transformation and the purging and releasing that this is causing in this realm of small business, learning, skills and abilities, and networking and communications, if it's all feeling too much, this is your answer. This is your escape valve. It's the Cancer polarity point to Pluto. And so through the 9th house is where you can find release. Going for a trip, go overseas for a bit, have a holiday, great time to do that, to cope with this energy. Or if you can't do that, look into other cultures, read up about other cultures, read up about philosophies, connect with a mentor, connect with an inspirational figure, follow someone new on YouTube that really inspires you and causes you a lot of delight, and connect with that inspirational figure online if you can't do it with somebody in person. The 9th house is, like I said, inspirational figures, belief systems, philosophies, ideologies. It's our morality as well. So focus on these areas of life, enhancing those things and growing your worldview, exploring other cultures, having a bit of adventure as well, Scorpio. You guys like to be a bit edgy with things. Get out there and have some adventure. 9th house is connected to adventure and galloping off, like the archer that fires an arrow is the symbol of Sagittarius, which corresponds to the 9th house, and you fire the arrow and you gallop off to go get it, and this is what we mean, having that sense of vision of progress, of having fun, of adventure, and going after something. If you can direct your energy to those realms as well, then you cope with all the changes and transformations that are occurring in the 3rd house. Sagittarius, I just spoke about you with your archer symbolism, and if you're Sagittarius rising or sun or moon, then this is falling for you in the second house. So there can be a lot of upheaval and change for you financially at the moment. Maybe some purging of old karma regarding how you view money, how you use money, where you spend your money, and your possessions, the worldly, things you collect that make material life more enjoyable or more comfortable or safe or secure. The second house is our outer security as well as our inner sense of self-worth and self-value. It's a house of values actually as well. So you might be going through some sort of restructuring of these now, and you need to allow these changes in your sense of self-worth and where you find your value, where you find your your sense of belonging in the world, and your how much you esteem yourself. This is going to go through some changes right now, as well as your external possessions, and maybe your money even as well might be going through some change and transformation, and you need to practice acceptance and stoicism at this time. You need to practice patience for all these things to play out as they are meant to, in order to let you up level, as I spoke of in the beginning to this video. So it's a time for allowing change in these realms, and that might not be easy to embrace. Maybe you've always earned a certain amount of money, and suddenly you're going through a change, and you've changed career direction, but it's not bringing you the money that you once earned through another career, and you're like, hang on, am I in the right place? Do I need to do something different? And it's causing some upheaval and some change and restructuring in your life. Evaluating, is this for me? Is this not for me? Is this helping my soul to grow? Is it encouraging my sense of self-worth and self-value? If you're going through a lot of upheaval with this, if you're struggling with this process of change that needs to play out, the solution is to focus on the polarity point to Pluto. And that happens to be your 8th house. So the polarity point in the 8th house means perhaps you need to explore mysticism. Perhaps you need to get an astrology reading at this time. Perhaps you need to focus more on receiving from others. Instead of focusing on what am I doing, how am I creating money for my life, maybe you need to be thinking, well, what am I getting from other people? And that can be monetary things, but it can also be, what kind of encouragement and feedback am I getting from other people? Do they like what I'm offering the world? What's the response I'm getting from others? Am I being upheld? Am I being encouraged? Am I being inspired by other people? What are you receiving from others? Focus on those things. This is a house of receiving from other people. This is a house of making money yourself, a house of receiving from others. Focus on that. Maybe you need to, like I said, look into some sort of mystical occult practices. Don't go to the dark side, but maybe like do an astrology course, get an astrology reading, go visit a shaman, go visit somebody who does energy healing. In fact, do a past life regression would be really great at the moment. Understand where you've come from, getting to the core of things, going deep with transformation is very much the 8th house. These are some of the things you can practice right now that will actually help to balance you out regarding the upheaval that you might be experiencing in the material, financial, possessions realm of life, as well as your sense of self-worth and self-value. So moving along, Capricorn rising people. Well, hey guys, it's all in your first house. This energy is really bringing emphasis to your whole journey, how you move through life, what you are experiencing in life, your ability to survive and to thrive, your body and your bodily health and well-being. All these things are being addressed now with the conjunction here. So maybe you're going to need to allow transformation in terms of your body. Maybe, and I mentioned this for Virgo rising, I think it was as well, might have been, but maybe there is you're going through menopause and you're struggling and fighting with it, and I don't want this change to happen in my life. I don't want to go through menopause. And maybe the universe is saying, well, hey, you need to allow change. You need to allow this thing to happen in your life. You need to allow this transformation that's being brought to your body, your physical presence on the planet. Menopause is just one of the ways our bodies can transform and change, and it need not be through menopause. It might be through some sort of maybe you put on weight and you don't know why. Maybe there's been a hormonal change. Maybe there's been some kind of sickness that's caused physical changes to your body or to your energy levels or your life force energy, as seen by the first house. It doesn't have to be in these negative ways, but this is some of the change and transformation. It could mean that suddenly you lose a ton of weight, and you need to accept that, hey, that's the case. Maybe I've lost all my curves and now I'm really skinny, going for the androgynous look instead now. These kind of things that, I'm not it's saying it has to be one or the other, but there might be some bodily change that you experience now, some change to how you are moving through life. Maybe it could be in career, it could be in relationships, it could be in your home life, because the first house sums up so much of our whole journey is seen by the first house. Including our ability to survive and thrive, which comes through our career, which comes through our home and our home life and our childhoods and so forth, and comes through our relationships. So anything that affects our ability to survive and thrive is going to be impacted by this energy of Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And what's happening is that it's allowing us to release and let go of what has held us back from truly progressing on the path, from truly up-leveling to a new state of enlightenment. Whatever has held us back from being authentic about our life on the planet, Capricorn, that's going to get reviewed. Now, if this is proving to be a difficult process for you in your life, there is a solution, and that is you can cope through focusing on the polarity point of Pluto. The polarity point of Pluto for you guys is 7th house. Make connections now. Reach out to others, and this can be your clients, this can be your business partners, this can be your marriage partner or a significant other. Reach out and connect. Create relationship bonds now. It is your source of stability and balance during a time of, when your particular journey might be going through some upheaval. You might also, if you get the chance, like to enjoy some sort of sophisticated surroundings or circumstances. Go out for a fine dinner one night, and that might just help you find your equilibrium again. Maybe you might like to go visit an art gallery and walk through all the fine paintings and just find your sense of peace at an art gallery or an exhibition of some sort, or some sort of fine concert, or some sophisticated, because 7th house is connected to sophisticated culture, that you might find a sense of balance, sense of relief in. So that is one of the ways for Capricorn people to cope right now: connection and through immersion in some sort of sophisticated endeavor. If you are Aquarius rising, and this is our final sign for today because we started with Pisces. Whoopsies. Aquarius rising, well, this energy is falling in your 12th house. So obviously it's one of the difficult houses. There are 3 what we call malefic houses in Vedic astrology, and this is one of them. But it's also a house of healing. So for you guys, it is very much a karmic experience, and I've spoken about this in my previous recent videos as well. But it's very much about karma. And for you guys, the 2 planets of difficult karma, Saturn karmic fears, Pluto trauma and suffering, connecting in the house of karma, you guys are unraveling the old karmic seeds right now, and you're up leveling from this. But it can be a very difficult process as you purge the old karmic wounds, the old karmic attitudes and beliefs that need to go. So you need to allow change and transformation that might be coming to you in quite challenging ways right now. You need to practice acceptance, you need to practice stoicism and patience as you go through this purging process. But let me tell you, you guys are going to emerge into the blossom time. The promise of this is just so powerful for you, as is the difficulty in the purging. So this is the process of being reborn you're going through right now. The endings, the wrapping up, the conclusions, the excretion of everything that is holding you back prior to being reborn. You know what they say, it's always darkest before the dawn. So it can be something of a challenge. You want to surround yourself with love right now to get you through. And it isn't all bad. I mean, Jupiter is here. Jupiter is giving some light, some buoyance to this process. Keep in mind, keep reminding yourself that this is healing time as well. So, if we get a wound on our body and it's festering and it's not nice, and we need to take antibiotics or something like that, or get a tetanus shot or whatever, it can be a difficult process. But when your wound is stinging and tingling, you know that the body is healing it. Even though it's hurting at the moment, there's healing that's happening through the tingling, through the stinging that's occurring. The body is sending energy there to cause it to heal. And this is what's going on for you now. There is a wound there from a past life experience, most likely. In fact, definitely with all this energy in Capricorn. There's a past life experience where you need to clear out the gunk from. Send the energy of healing to. It's going to tingle for a while. It might sting for a while, but then it's going to heal over and be brand new. And you'll be released from that wound. Now, how do you cope with this period of time where these sorts of things might come up? And in a practical way, it could just mean meetings with significant people. It could mean that are karmic for you in your life. It could mean endings with people that have been karmic influences on your life. It could mean interactions with spiritual people that help lift you up and enlighten you and grow you, but there's a process to go through to reach that. So there's going to be lots of karmic interludes in your life that you might not even be aware are karmic, but that is very much the nature of this. It's through the 6th house that you can find an ability to cope with this process. What is 6th house? Well, 6th house in shamanic astrology is rituals and ceremonies. And so you might like to do some sort of shamanic journeying at this time. You might like to invoke some sort of a protection ceremony, perhaps, or a ritual. And if you are an Aquarius rising person and you would like a protection ritual, I can send you one. Send me an email and let me know that you're after that, and I can send it to you. Protection rituals or visioning practices. This, what a lot of people don't realize about the 6th house is that it is one of the malefic houses, but all the malefic houses are actually houses of healing. The 8th house, the 12th house, and the 6th house are all houses of healing. And if we're getting activations to those houses, we know we're going through a purging and releasing and healing process. 6th house is practical healing. 8th house is psychological healing, and the 12th house is karmic healing, and also miraculous and medicinal healing is also seen from the 12th house. So practical healing can often, in the ancient shamanic times, be the rituals that we need. We do some kind of practical activity to cause change and healing in our soul. So some sort of practical activity, and it could also mean that you need to focus on your health, eating well, doing a bit of exercise, having a good routine, having some structure to your daily life. If you put your energy there to those practical things, practical everyday routine, doing some sort of activity with your body and your hands, doing some sort of ceremony, these can be very healing and cathartic and rebalancing for you as you go through this karmic process of purging. So you might like to get a book on shamanism and read up about the practices. Now, being a shaman is seen from the 8th house, but a lot of the practices, the rituals are 6th house, okay? So you might like to get a book on shamanic practices, or you might like to find a YouTuber who's all about life coaching and follow their instructions for healthy eating, healthy diet, healthy exercise, and so on, that can help get you back on track or enhance what you've got already to help balance this karmic process of purging that you're going through and set you up for the year ahead. So I have talked today about the process of Saturn conjunct Pluto for you personally. I hope this has given you some enlightenment and some ideas about how you can deal with this energy. I'd encourage everyone to do therapy, in whatever way you can, to get into that basement, shine a light there and release whatever needs to go to help you move forward. Let's close now with a prayer before we end. Great Spirit, we just invite you into our worlds and our experiences here on planet Earth for 2020 and indeed for the whole decade that is now ahead of us. We thank you for the clean slate we have and a fresh start we have to make something wonderful of this year and this decade. And we ask that the energy of love will fill us in all our interactions, in our thoughts, in our worldview, as we expand and we grow and we rise up again towards the golden age. Help us to find balance through this January period. Help us to find wisdom. Help us to share our balance and our wisdom and our knowledge with those who need it most. May we do so in love. Thank you so much for, again, your presence through the previous decade that's brought enlightenment and insight and knowledge to us in many ways, some easy, some difficult, but we thank you that you've brought us this far, and we look forward to all you're going to teach us in the future. And so it is. Well, thank you for joining me, and I'll have another video for you next week.